The first time the young man stood before the towering gates of one of the wealthiest estates in Dallas, Texas, every security guard expected him to leave in humiliation. The old billionaire inside had already decided that the stranger was nothing more than another fortune hunter chasing his only daughter. But what no one knew was that the billionaire had spent decades reading people like books, and this time he had prepared a test unlike anything money could buy. Before the sun set, one man's character would be exposed, one father's heart would be transformed, and one simple act of kindness would prove that true wealth had nothing to do with the size of a bank account. If you believe kindness is stronger than money and that everyone deserves a second chance, please like this video, share it with someone who still believes in good people, leave a comment telling us where you're watching from, and subscribe to our channel for more heart-touching stories that restore faith in humanity. In Dallas, everyone knew the name Richard Sullivan. At 71 years old, he had built one of America's largest real estate empires from nothing more than determination and sleepless nights. His success came with unimaginable wealth, luxurious homes, private jets, and endless influence, but it also came with deep loneliness. His wife had passed away years earlier, leaving him to raise his only daughter, Grace Sullivan, alone. Grace inherited her father's intelligence, but also her late mother's compassion. While Richard measured people by discipline and achievement, Grace believed the greatest measure of a person was kindness. When Grace introduced her boyfriend, Nathan Brooks, Richard immediately became suspicious. Nathan was 29, handsome, ambitious, and worked as an architect for a small local company. Although he had a respectable career, he earned only a tiny fraction of what the Sullivan family possessed. Richard had watched countless men pretend to love wealthy women before revealing they only loved luxury. He refused to let his daughter become another victim. Instead of openly opposing the relationship, Richard quietly investigated Nathan's background. He found no criminal history, no gambling debts, and no scandals. Everything appeared clean. Yet Richard remained unconvinced. Good records could be manufactured. Character could not. So he decided to create his own test. 1 week later, Richard announced that he would consider accepting Nathan only after spending a weekend together. Grace felt relieved, believing her father was finally opening his heart. Nathan happily accepted the invitation, unaware that every moment had already been carefully planned. The billionaire instructed his staff to keep the true purpose secret. Expensive watches, luxury cars, and designer suits would play no role in this weekend. Richard wanted to discover who Nathan truly became when no reward was waiting. On the first morning, Richard deliberately arrived late for breakfast after secretly asking one of his elderly gardeners, Samuel Carter, to accidentally spill coffee near Nathan. Samuel apologized repeatedly while pretending to tremble with embarrassment. Nathan immediately stood up, smiled warmly, helped the old man clean the mess, and assured him accidents happened to everyone. Richard watched silently through a security camera, refusing to let a single kind gesture influence his judgment. The second test came later that afternoon. Richard claimed he needed Nathan to deliver confidential business papers across town. Along the route, a disabled veteran named Thomas Miller sat beside a broken wheelchair outside a community center. Thomas was another trusted employee participating in Richard's experiment. Nathan stopped without hesitation. Instead of simply handing over a few dollars, he spent nearly an hour helping Thomas repair the damaged wheelchair before personally driving him to a nearby veterans clinic. Nathan arrived late with the documents, fully expecting Richard to be angry. Instead of making excuses, he accepted responsibility, saying some things were simply more important than schedules. Richard said nothing, but something inside him shifted. Even so, decades of disappointment had made him cautious. 2 acts of kindness could still be part of an elaborate performance. The following morning, Richard invited Nathan to tour one of his newest luxury developments. During the drive, they passed a small neighborhood where a house had partially burned during an electrical fire the previous night. Emergency workers had already left, but a frightened family remained outside, staring at everything they had lost. Nathan quietly asked the driver to stop. Without considering appearances or personal convenience, he walked over and began helping the family recover whatever belongings could still be saved. He carried damaged furniture, sorted family photographs, comforted frightened children, and even removed his expensive jacket to wrap around a little girl who was shivering in the cool morning air. No cameras surrounded him. No reporters watched. Grace wasn't there to admire him. Nathan believed nobody connected to Richard would ever know. Hidden from a distance, Richard watched through binoculars. For the first time in many years, tears gathered in the billionaire's eyes. Nathan's kindness looked effortless, natural, and genuine. Still, one final test remained. That evening Richard invited Nathan into his private study. The room displayed awards, family portraits, and reminders of a lifetime spent building an empire. Richard placed an envelope on the table. Inside was a legal agreement offering Nathan $10 million if he quietly ended his relationship with Grace and disappeared forever. Richard explained that his daughter would eventually recover from heartbreak, but Nathan would never again need to worry about money. The room fell completely silent. Nathan slowly closed the envelope. He looked around the office filled with priceless artwork and polished trophies before returning the envelope to Richard. He admitted that $10 million could transform anyone's life. It could pay debts, build dreams, and provide comfort for generations. But if accepting that money required breaking the heart of the woman he loved, then it would become the most expensive mistake he could ever make. He said love built on honesty could never be replaced by wealth built on betrayal. Richard stared at the young man without speaking. Years earlier, he himself had once chosen business over love. His late wife had forgiven him countless times for putting work before family. Now, listening to Nathan, Richard realized he had spent decades believing success came from protecting money, when perhaps the greatest success was protecting people. The following morning, Richard invited Grace to the estate garden. Nathan expected another difficult conversation. Instead, Richard slowly stood, walked toward Nathan, and extended his hand. He confessed that every accident, every delay, every struggling stranger, and every impossible choice had been carefully arranged. He admitted he had believed Nathan only wanted the Sullivan fortune. Instead, Nathan had repeatedly chosen compassion when nobody was watching and integrity when greed promised an easier future. Richard apologized for judging him before truly knowing him. Grace wrapped her arms around her father, tears filling her eyes. Nathan accepted the apology without resentment because he understood the fear hidden beneath Richard's suspicion. The billionaire had not been protecting his money. He had been protecting the only family he had left. Months later, Richard established the Margaret Sullivan Kindness Foundation, honoring his late wife. Nathan became its lead architect, designing affordable housing projects across Texas for struggling families instead of building only luxury properties. Grace managed the foundation's community programs, ensuring every project carried the compassion her mother had once shown the world. Richard discovered that every ribbon-cutting ceremony brought him more happiness than signing another billion-dollar contract ever had. Watching families receive safe homes reminded him that wealth reached its highest purpose only when it lifted someone else. The man who had once trusted only business contracts now trusted kindness again. The young architect who arrived at the mansion carrying nothing but hope left carrying something far more valuable than money, a father's respect and an entire family's love. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video, share it with your family and friends, and subscribe for more emotional stories that remind us kindness can still change lives. Your support helps us continue creating stories that inspire hope around the world. Before you go, tell us in the comments, what would you have done if someone offered you $10 million to walk away from the person you truly loved? As the golden Texas sunset painted the Sullivan estate in warm light, Richard finally understood the lesson that had taken him a lifetime to learn. Money could build magnificent homes, but only kindness could build a family. True riches were never stored in bank accounts. They were found in compassionate hearts willing to choose love when greed offered an easier path. And from that day forward, every person who crossed the gates of the Sullivan estate left believing that the greatest investment anyone could ever make was simple kindness, because unlike wealth, kindness always multiplies when it is shared.